Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. I'm quite excited to get today's guest on because, as you all know, I do love exploring different industries and the role that technology plays in that. And Shawn Harper is the co-founder and CEO of a company called Kin, K-I-N, which is an insurance company built from scratch on modern technology to make it easier and more affordable to insure a home, especially in areas prone to extreme weather. And he's a self-proclaimed tech geek, and Shawn has spent his career developing apps to revolutionize antiquated industries. And when he realised that the homeowners insurance industry was still being managed unlike any other consumer financial products today, and it was relying on paperwork, legacy IT systems and distribution through local brokers, where many would see a challenge, Shawn saw an opportunity. So he co-founded Kin as a tech-based insurance agency way back in 2016, and he has grown it into a fully licensed home insurance carrier supported by a team of over 100 employees, all with a focus on world-class customer service, insurance literacy, and smarter coverage. Essentially, they're using technology to change the way that insurance is done. And having read that story, I thought we'd better get him on the show today. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way back to Illinois so we can speak with Shawn Harper, co-founder and CEO of Kin. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Shawn, and I'm one of the co-founders, and I'm the CEO of Kin Insurance, which is a tech company that provides insurance similar to what a more legacy insurance company would provide, like an Allstate, for example. And we insure homes that are in risky places. And we do it at a lower cost than anyone else, and in a very simple and streamlined way online. So most of our customers are able to insure their homes in a few minutes using their phone or on their laptop or iPad, and they usually save about $800 a year.
Wow. And you say risky places. Is that due to flooding, crime, or just anything to do with insurance risk?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're really focused on areas that face extreme weather risk.
Yeah.
And for, in the United States, the market for home insurance is about $100 billion, and about $40 billion of that is from places that are hurricane and flood exposed.
Yeah.
That would be like the whole state of Florida, for example, or, most of Texas. And then there's about another $10 billion that is exposed to wildfires, which is, most of California, excepting places that are very urban in California. They don't have any risk of burning.
So an insurance company built from scratch on modern tech to actually make it easier and more affordable to insure a home is a great idea. But I'm curious, what inspired you to embark on this startup journey? Because there must be a story there.
Yeah, there is. And it really goes back. So Lucas, my co-founder, and I both started our career as consultants. I was at BCG and he was at Accenture. And I remember walking into an insurance company, one of my first clients when I was a consultant. And you look around and you realize that actually an insurance company or a bank or trading firm or whatever, financial services firms are actually software companies. But they're all actually pretty bad at software. And the reason why they're software companies is because there's no physical thing. It's all done on, it's a virtual good that we're selling, an insurance contract. And they're bad at software mainly because they are running really old software. And so if you pick a big insurance company, you go there and you start finding the smartest people and asking them what's wrong or what they would fix or what they would do different, it all ends up being related to the IT. Oh, I had this great idea. I wanted to price differently on this new variable. but our system can't do it. And the system won't be able to do it until we finish the replatforming. But we've been working on this replatforming for 5 years, and who knows when it'll be done. And by the way, the last time we tried to replatform, it didn't work. We gave up midway through, and there are all these stories. And so that gets us excited because we're nerdy guys and we like writing software. And the idea that there's this sort of hidden software industry within the financial services business that is really behind the times creates an appealing business opportunity for us.
And technology in insurance is pretty huge at the moment. It's even got its own buzzword of Insurtech, of course. But how are you seeing tech changing the home insurance industry from when you very first started out?
It's really slow to change. There are a lot of reasons why insurance is slow to change, which we could cover in a little bit. But by and large, the way that homes are insured now is the same way they were insured 50 years ago.
Yeah,
they're sold the same way. They're using the same forms a lot of the time. Like the actual legal document is one that's been derived, from an insurance contract that's almost 100 years. It's more than 100 years old, and the industry just hasn't changed very much. The way it's priced is pretty similar to how it used to be priced, and it's become a very inefficient industry. So, if you look at the prices of most things, especially electronic things, over the last 50 years, they've gotten a lot cheaper. My laptop is half the price it would have been 2 years ago. My television is half the price and it's 4 times as big as the one I got a few years ago. Yet in insurance, the cost actually continues to go up. And in home insurance, typically around 30 to 35% of the money that you pay goes to stuff other than paying claims. And so that's things like their IT, or like paying an insurance agent, or buying television commercials, or shuffling papers back and forth. And that number hasn't budged. It hasn't changed at all in the last 30 years. And it's very expensive if you think about it in dollars terms, because, imagine a $1,500 policy, which is pretty typical for a single family home. That means $500 is being wasted on stuff that you, the consumer, doesn't care about. And so that to me is the most immediate opportunity, is just using tech to streamline the business processes and have computers do things that people used to do and eliminate that waste.
And one other thing, a huge change in the last 10, 20 years, of course, is climate change. And you did mention that a few moments ago. But what kind of impact is climate change having on home insurance?
It's having a big impact. And it's a funny thing, because we'll get this question from investors sometimes. Like, well, what about when climate change happens and there's no market for your product anymore? Like, well, actually, climate change happening means there's more of a market for our product, especially because, ironically, people are moving to climate impacted areas. They're not moving away from them. Like Illinois, where I live, is not climate impacted in the same way that California or Florida is. And Illinois is losing population at the same time that places like Florida and California are gaining population. So it is making home insurance more expensive, as you have this sort of double whammy where more people are living in climate exposed areas, and also more areas are becoming climate exposed. So the prices have gone up, which is just a cost of living. I don't believe that wide swaths of our country will become uninhabitable, but it does mean that living in those places will be more expensive, and you will need to fix your home when the wind blows really strong and it damages your roof. That'll be an expensive repair that you have to fix. So it's happening. Also, maybe a little bit slower. I think a lot of people hear the news and they expect that, the very next year, a lot of things will change. I don't know that it's as clear cut as that. I think the consensus view is that you'll be able to notice the impact of climate change on hurricanes sometime in the next 20 to 30 years. The one area where it does seem like things are moving a lot faster is with fires. The the extent of the wildfires in California has taken everybody by surprise in the last few years, and everyone's scrambling to deal with it.
And for all homeowners listening, they'll know all too well about the regular costs of fixing and maintaining their home. But are there any tech updates that listeners could actually make to their homes and cut down those insurance costs? Because I've seen a few around tiny sensors that can detect a leak as soon as it happened. But are you seeing any, or do you suggest any tech updates that would help people cut down their insurance costs?
Yeah, so a good way to look at it is to start with the types of claims that are being made.
Yeah.
So in areas where we insure, let's take the hurricane exposed areas because that's a huge part of the country. About half of the premium you're paying is going to cover the hurricane impacts. And so the best thing that you can do there is invest in actual structural improvements to the home. It's not really techy. I mean, it's tech of a sort, but it's not electronic tech. This would be things like having hurricane shutters, or making sure that your roof is connected to the walls. The roof wall connection is really strong, or that the roof covering, the type of shingles that you're using, are the type that are rated to withstand higher winds. Those types of investments can save you a lot of money on your insurance. In fact, the difference can be, it could be a third of the price. You could save 60% if your home is resilient versus not. On the electronic side, the next biggest cost of losses are preventable water losses.
Yeah.
This is things like your water heater springing a leak, or the hose between your washing machine, or sometimes people have a leak underneath their sink. Those can be pretty expensive, especially if they go undetected. So there's a lot of gear now that will sense those water leaks. There's really two types of it. There's one class of gear that's a little sensor that you put near the source of the potential leak. And then there's another type where it actually hooks into the main water main on your house, and it watches the water going through for abnormal activity. And that second class of device can actually shut the water off proactively if it notices unusual activity. Or it could allow you from your phone to shut the water off, which is pretty cool. The type of discount that you can get for those types of devices on your insurance isn't that big.
Yeah.
It'd be between 5 and 15%. And the reason is that a lot of insurance companies don't have enough data yet to really price that in. But having a catastrophic water leak in your house is awful. And I would make the case that some of these devices are worth investing in. Even for other reasons, not just to save on your insurance, but just to avoid having your basement get flooded.
And you've spoke a little bit about what makes Kin Insurance different from all the other solutions out there, but how does Kin Insurance address some of those problems that we've spoken about today? Is there anything you can expand on there?
Yeah, so we deal with the weather risk, which is really the biggest one in two ways. The first is we have a lower cost structure, so we're allowed to be cheaper on average than most insurance companies, which at a time when the weather is getting worse and prices are getting higher is of value to the consumer. The other is we're really good at using, so the traditional insurance world, they basically ask the user about their home and that's how they price, or they ask the insurance agent about the home and that's how they price. We connect to a lot of newer data sources, and we actually have like thousands of variables about your home. And so we understand really, really well how resilient your home will be to the weather based upon how it's built, and also exactly where it is, because the impact of the weather can be really different one block to the next, or 1 mile closer to the ocean versus 1 mile further away. And so that's a really big part of what we do, is using all that data to come up with an accurate price for the risk. And so that means that people will be rewarded with lower insurance costs for making mitigations to their homes, or for living in areas that are slightly less risky. And it'll become more expensive to not make those investments or to live in the very, very risky places.
So we've spoken a little bit about where we are now and how the insurance teams, the insurance industry is fairly slow to react to technological changes in the industry. But what excites you most about the road ahead and the role of emerging technologies? Because there seems to be a lot of opportunity there, doesn't there, for improvement?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I think about it in sort of three phases. Insurance is way behind. It's in the 1970s or 1980s when it comes to tech. The first wave is going to be just using tech to make things more efficient. Yeah. That's the very, very low-hanging fruit, and we're in that wave right now. There's us and a handful of other companies that are doing a really good job of making insurance easier to buy and cheaper. A lot of the times it means you're removing the legacy agent, because that agent was a really big part of the cost structure. They're about half of the legacy cost structure. And then the second phase, and we're sort of midway through this phase as well for the more advanced companies like us, is there's so much more data out there than there's ever been before. Using that data to price the risk accurately is a huge opportunity. And it's, one of these things where it's an arms race that'll just keep going. As companies get better at this and more data comes online and gets incorporated, the bar will keep getting raised in terms of pricing accuracy and the amount of data that's being used, in perpetuity. And that's a really good thing. And then the third wave is where insurance companies actually get involved in some of the stuff that you were talking about, where we're actually making repairs or preventative maintenance or installing or facilitating the installation of devices that actually prevent risks from happening. And that's a pretty exciting thing to think about, especially because it's not just about preventing risk. A lot of these devices or updates actually make living in the home day to day a lot nicer. And so we look forward to a day where insurance is a lot cheaper, it's a lot easier, and where it helps make your life as a homeowner, better on a day-to-day basis.
And what about you guys at Kin Insurance? Are you using technology to enhance the lives and experiences of your customers, or is that something that's on your roadmap for the future? I appreciate you probably can't share too much, but is there anything you can?
Yeah, we're working on a lot of the stuff in the third phase. There will be a lot of that released. Right now, we're really in the middle of those first two phases, which are really important changes that will pass on, tens of billions of dollars of savings to the user. But most of that third phase where we're preventing and getting involved on a day-to-day basis is ahead of us. We have some tests going, but nothing really meaningful at the moment.
And for anyone listening that might be living in a risky area of the US there and wanting to explore what you do differently, how you can help, how you can reduce their prices, etc., and use technology, of course, what is the best way of finding you online and reaching out to your team and asking a question if they've got one?
Yeah, the easiest place to find us is just at our website. It's kin.com, kin like family, and we take that really seriously. We really want to treat our customers like we're their family, and we think, who would you rather have insuring your home than somebody who considers themselves part of your family? And we're, you can get a quote online in a few seconds if you're in one of the areas that we serve. You can also, find our email and live chat and text if you want to ask us a question.
Well, I think as a result of climate change and a lot of people living in certain areas that they've lived for years now suddenly feel neglected and overcharged, especially by insurance companies who are trying to lower their risk. So I love what you're doing here, and I love how you're leveraging technology to do just that. But more than anything, just a big thank you for coming on and sharing that story with me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Such a great story there, going back to 2016, and Kin was just getting itself off the ground in Chicago, a city that has become somewhat of an insurance tech hub. But since then, Harper has led the company through some of its most notable growth milestones so far. And I love the way that he's leveraged a background in computer science to develop several successful apps, including online payment platform that was eventually sold to Groupon, I believe. But it's along that journey that he turned to technology to revolutionise those antiquated industries. So a great Insurtech story. And it was also great to learn how tech is changing the home insurance industry and also the impact of climate change on home insurance too. But please, if you've got any similar stories or any similar experiences, I'd love to hear from you. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. You can go to my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. You can see all 1,100 plus podcast interviews over there and also find out how you can work with me, whether that be outsourcing your business blog posts or launching your own podcast, whatever that might be, I should be able to help you. But as for the podcast, well, that will return tomorrow because I've got another guest already lined up for you all. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.